Hello, everybody. I'm Daisy Sedeno, and this is Comunica, where culture and communications get together. I'm a communications coach, I'm a journalist. I work with different radio stations in the East Coast and a TV station also in Florida. And I do everything related to communications. And we decided to do this series about culture and communications and leadership because those are my passions. I love communications. That's what I do for a living. And I'm a bilingual communications coach. And I also have a master's in leadership. So somehow I felt connected with this topic. And a lot of people are talking about culture and communications, how to communicate effectively. And for that, I invited a very special friend. For his name is Michael Fieger. He's a digital marketing expert, and we're going to talk about something that is really interesting: branding and communications. And he's here. How you doing, Michael?
Great. It's wonderful to see you. I remember our first video we ever did was like 15 years ago. We were both
Like
kids.
five, we were kids.
Yes.
So did I put it correctly? This is more or less what we're going to be talking about. We were talking by backstage, how we can connect this with branding and what you do, which is also it navigates in that era of digital, but communicating with different type of audiences and culture comes across all the time.
Yes. In my world, in the digital world, communication is key. And it really depends on who you're talking to. So you need to know your audience. And that's what you teach. So,
Exactly. Tell me a little bit about your, I mean, I know about what you've been doing all these years. I know you from like forever, but tell the audience, maybe they don't know and they can follow you and the different social medias, but tell us more or less what is it you do when it comes to branding and communicating that brand.
yes. So, what I've been doing this about 15 years, and I owned a agency, and it was great, but the market has changed. A lot of people are going overseas, they're going to these big box stores. And so before COVID, I said, getting so administrative, I really want to get back into the creative side. So I created Devil Dog Marketplace. And what it is, it's like going to a Chinese buffet where
Mhm,
you can pick and choose what digital services you prefer to
mhm.
help your branding. And so when you go into a China buffet, you all you want is rice. That's all you need. So I set up the business where I am the freelancer and I am the vetted person, and I work with my clients on a one-to-one basis to help them get seen, found, and heard. Graphic design is my number one go-to business. I help them with website design and search engine optimization, which is a very big specialized field by itself. And I've been doing it so long that I'm able to help my clients with those services.
Okay, for the people that are connecting, we are in Facebook right now. We are also in LinkedIn and also in YouTube talking about branding and communications, how to communicate your brand effectively, but culture, also is one of the key elements to be able to communicate. So that's why I decided to invite Michael. I've known him for like forever. When it comes to branding, he's an expert. And now he's doing a lot of the digital side of branding, which is like if you're not digital, you are behind, right, Michael?
Yeah, my clientele could either be young, middle, and senior. And I find that people that are in their 40s and above, they're not keeping up with technology. So I kind of help them with the heavy lifting. I take
Mhm.
away the technical aspects of things and make it easy for them to run their business by doing the heavy lifting.
So let's talk about how culture is so important to understand. And when we talk about culture, it could be, not only that you speak another language, it could be so many factors when it comes to culture. And Michael has been working with different type of generations, like he said, and different type of cultures. And he is in Florida. If you are in Florida, there's no way to run out of diversity. And I'm in Florida as well. Yeah, it's a community that is full of diversity, which is beautiful.
Yeah, I initially when I moved to Florida, I had an opportunity working with a Hispanic magazine,
Mhm.
and that was very unique for the to a gringo from New York City, and so I learned about Hispanic culture and how every culture communicates differently, but every country in the Latin world communicates differently, and so not only did it help me understand a very large population in Florida. But
Mhm.
I also brought that expertise to American companies to help
Yes.
them understand how to market to the Latin world. And it really opened my eyes to the culture. And so I embraced the language and the music and just the love for business that the Latin world brings to to South Florida.
And I met him also when I was put together my company, which is Hispanic in America. And I was creating my own thing, and he was doing also marketing and getting involved with different projects. And Hispanic in America became that also. I mean, it's a different world to be Hispanic in United States compared to a Hispanic, a Latino in Latin America. It's another type of interaction, and that's what I want also to touch base with you, because I think we treat everybody like the same, and we have to be careful with that.
Yeah, I mean, what I learned, I mean, I grew up in New York. It was a very Boricua, a Puerto Rican environment,
Uh-huh.
environment. And when you move to Florida, you meet people from South America, and
Hmm.
the words are unique, the foods are unique, and so you need to understand each client's uniqueness and communicate in that way.
Exactly. What will be the first thing that you kind of figure it out immediately? Okay, you said that different backgrounds is important, not treat everybody just because you are Latino, Hispanic, you are not in one box. And sometimes that's where we put everybody. It's a way to make it easier, but at the same time it can get complicated. When did you find out that that was a key element?
I It really came to my being when I love food. And so when you go to a Mexican restaurant, it's a certain style of food and they have certain words in their vocabulary that they don't use in Puerto Rico. Or like the word in Puerto Rico for small is maceta.
Mm-hmm.
In other Latin countries it's tacaño. So I mean it's poquito, or there's different words. And so I learned that food is a unique way to communicate.
Food,
Obviously, music and
music.
dance was a
Uh-huh.
very unique way to communicate. And I learned that the Latin culture is full of passion and their hearts are very big. And if you speak to the Latin world um, with an open heart, with a sense of giving, you get that. They embrace that, whether you're American or whether you're from a different culture.
Wow, I love that you said that. Passion is one of the, I think it comes from being just Latin. I think it's French people, Italians, we have this thing about expressing with our bodies, with our even body language and contact. We hold, we hug people immediately, we kiss. All those little things is part of our culture. And we are very relational. When it comes to leadership, we are very into, okay, what is that relationship with this person? And when it comes to doing business, it's all about relationships also. Latinos are like that, and Italians are like that. They're very like family. And I think that's so important to understand that when you even the commercials, I don't know if you've seen the commercials for the Hispanic community, they put a lot of the family factor, the mom, the dad, the kids. There's something in there so interesting when it comes to, we are very relational, and also we leave the transaction for later. Let's see how we connect as people, and then we can do a transaction. And that's important to understand, because I feel like maybe Americans are more like, let's see how we do business and then we can be friends. Let me see how it's like I don't know if you feel that way, the same way.
Yeah, I mean, there's in the world of business, if people like you and trust you, they'll do business with you. But in Hispanic world, they have their own circle of trust, and they don't let people in unless they really like you, they really trust you, and they feel that you're coming from a good place. Otherwise, you're not going to be in their circle. And it doesn't matter what language, what culture. They prefer to work with their own culture because it's language wise. If it's their first language is Spanish, they enjoy that the most. However, if they like you and trust you, they will listen. And I've worked with many Hispanic businesses and who are bilingual, obviously. Now I have a leg up on other American companies who don't understand the Hispanic world.
So knowing your audience, do not put everybody in the same box. That's what we're learning today. Be careful with that. To put everybody in that bucket just because that person is Latino or even women are like this, men are like that. You have to be careful with that. Upbringing, education. You have to be careful with that, right, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, as simple as just inviting someone to dinner, and
Mm-hmm.
you say, "Hey, I'm taking you to a Colombian restaurant." The person says, "Oh, I don't like spicy foods." Well, there's no spicy in Colombian
Uh-huh.
restaurants.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
little things like that, there's certain, and in the island foods, they're more green and more fruity, and in Colombia, that's it, like steak and papa frita and sancocho, and there's different uh, food and styles for each culture. And if you say the wrong thing to to a Hispanic person who's from that culture, they're not going to embrace you as fast.
Exactly. So it's important to know your audience when it comes to communicating your brand effectively, and it comes in cultural, very important. What about other elements? What do you think about maybe the upbringing? Because, like I said at the beginning, it's not the same a Hispanic born and raised in United States and a Hispanic from, and sometimes it could be a challenge for some people to understand that, right?
Yeah, and a lot of Hispanics come to this country with an amazing array of education and experience. But when they come here, they have to start all over again.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they have to go back to school to get the same certifications they had in their own country. So it's not a reciprocal education. So sometimes they start over on a new business because to go back to law school when you had a law license in El Salvador and come here, it would be too much time. So they go into another trade, but don't underestimate their experience, their sense of honor for their culture and
Mm-hmm.
for their hard work.
What about the Latinos in United States? I mean, you work with them as well. They maybe the English is the first language and Spanish is the second one. I have two of them. I have two of those in the house.
Yeah, no, I mean, and you know, I always say to them, what country is your family from? As
Hmm.
because I don't want to make them feel, because they're American, they're American born, American is their first language, but once you ask them what their family's from, they tend to open up. I said, "Did your family teach you is Spanish?" And if they say no, I say, never too late to learn. It's an important
That's
language,
true. That's true.
and you can start at any time. And I really recommend it if you want to learn about the Hispanic culture. But if you do speak Spanish, and I start talking about their country and their culture and their language, and we just connect.
Exactly. And they have other interests. Maybe they just want to belong, be part of be felt like they actually belong because they're born and raised in United States. And some people just because that person looks a certain way, we have to be so careful with that. And it can be difficult. It's not judging anybody. It could be
No,
difficult for some people that maybe their experience is with the certain people type and they feel like how can I navigate that. I think one key element is just observe. When you go to a place, don't make conclusions right away, don't judge, just observe and just become interested, curious.
Yeah.
about what you have in front of you. It doesn't have to be only the Latino community. It could be somebody from Asia or Africa, because there's a huge community from Africa in Florida. Then you talk to them and you immediately put them as African American, and they said, "No, I'm from Nigeria. I'm from," and they have another type of upbringing. So when you're communicating with this element in the in on the table, you have to keep that in mind.
Yeah. I mean, I embrace all cultures, but to embrace that culture, you have to become a chameleon. You have to understand their their culture, and you need to, do a little. Like I worked in an industry where there were a lot of Chinese clients,
Mhm.
and I learned like 100 words in Chinese, like ni hao ma, and when you speak Chinese to somebody who doesn't expect it, they go, "Wow, where'd you learn that?" So it's a
Exactly.
great way to begin a relationship. So it's really appreciating their culture.
Well, so we are talking with Michael Fieger. He's an expert in digital branding, marketing, and we're talking about a very important element when it comes to communicating your brand, which is culture. And he's an expert when it comes to anything related to communicating that brand, but he always keeps culture as one of the elements to just keep in mind, just to make sure you know your audience. And he mentioned a couple elements: how to get to know your that culture. What about food, music, the passion that we bring to the table when it comes to the Latino community? And if it's more conservative, like the Asian community, you have to learn that too. Okay, maybe that will be too aggressive to mention that. Maybe we need to pull a little bit. Maybe that picture is too much. All those little elements you have to keep in mind when you're communicating your brand, communicating your company, even when you're communicating yourself as a brand, because a lot of people don't understand that we are a brand. When you go and you do an interview, when you go for that network event, you are in a community. You are a brand in that moment. You're communicating your expertise, correct? So even that is a brand. You are a brand.
Yeah, and a lot of events I would go to in the Hispanic world, there was always dancing. So I mean, I growing up in New York, I used to watch salsa, I used to watch merengue, I used to watch people dance, and I said, and I just have the ability to watch it and do it. So when I go to an event and I say to someone "te quiere bailar," and I do a little salsa with them, they go, "Wow." They especially ask my wife, they'll say, "Did you teach him that?" No, he came that way. So, any style, salsa, merengue, bachata, even reggaeton or cumbia, I can dance the culture of the country. And so for me, it's my way of connecting, but it's also, I really feel the passion of the music. Now, I've learned about what's important in the songs. They're always talking about corazon, which is the heart. They're always talking about, someone that broke their heart, and so there's a lot of pleasure there. There's a lot of pain, and then there's a lot of laughter in there as
Yeah.
well.
It's like country music, but in Spanish.
That's right.
So you've seen how the market has changed. I mean, we've seen it. I know Michael since forever, and we've seen the change. We saw the digital era come like a force, and COVID pushes even faster to go into that train. To go into that wagon of you need to learn or you're gonna stay behind. So I feel like we have advanced so much when it comes to connecting with different cultures. We have been pushed to do that in a way that is enjoyable because of internet, because of the social media. I mean, I know things that I've never would have known unless I saw it on Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat or TikTok, that we can see all over the world what people are doing in Europe and Asia, etc. So, do you think that was something that is for positive for us, or how is this all this content taking us for the future generations, all this content that we have to consume every day?
Well, I think it's broadening our experience. Like when you go to a supermarket now, when I was younger, they had a small cultural section. Now it
Yeah.
takes up a whole row. So they see the demand and they need to provide the supply. And so, and then, the people at the registers are coming from all different cultures. So, it's really, and especially in Florida, you may not see it, Midwest, but in Florida you see the diversity, and I truly embrace that. I love it. I use it in my business every day. Whether it's graphic design, and I visualize and I help my clients find their story, and I use the things I've learned from that diversity.
Mhm.
What people say, oh, have you done a lawyer website? Yes, I have, but I don't need to be a lawyer, but I need to understand what's in your head. And
Mhm.
so I use the tools I've learned to pull out the information from their passion and from their story. And then same thing for websites and for marketing. Getting that message out requires understanding that what that person wants. If someone says to me, create something or do something, I'm going to be 85% wrong. But if I get it from their passion, their
Mhm.
brain, the right side of their brain, which is the visual side, I'm going to be 85% right.
Fantastic. Well, know your audience, know the culture, how to learn the culture. We talked about observing, just get more interested in what they're doing. In that way, you're going to connect better with the needs of that culture, with the audience as well. And also when you're branding yourself out there, not only as a company, but as a person. We always have to keep in mind that when you are selling yourself out there in an interview, in a network event, you're shaking hands, you are in that moment becoming a brand. So, communications, culture together today. So, do you have anything else that you want to tell the audience before we close down?
Yes, you see the name Devil Dog? Devil Dog comes from my experience in the Marine Corps. I spent 6 years as a U.S. Marine, and so I mentor veterans on the weekends. So if you know a veteran who wants to be an entrepreneur, there's no charge. I help them find direction. And so people say, oh, I love Devil Dogs. The cupcake. I said, no, no, no. Don't call a Marine a cupcake. Those are fighting words. That came from the battles, the honor, the adaptability, and it's a name of honor. And so, as a veteran, our experience is vast, and so I help the veterans become what I've learned over the years. And if I can't help them, I teamed up with a nonprofit that can help them free of charge, getting from an idea all the way to running a business. And that would be a great introduction for me to help other veterans.
Okay, fantastic. Marketing, digital marketing expert, Michael Fieger with us today. We talked about communications, culture, and how to communicate your brand effectively, keeping in mind always that culture is a very important element to connect with your audience. Well, thank you so much,
Thank
Michael.
you for the opportunity to share to your audience, and reach out to me. Hopefully, you'll put my information at the
Yes,
end, and then they can reach out to me. I would love to have a conversation and help them get seen, found, and heard.
great.
Thank you.